Hello, everyone. I'd like to say a few words about a book that is just coming out from the Baha'i Distribution Service called Sparks of Fire, The Unknown Poetry of Tahirih. This is the fourth book that Amrollah, Hemmat, and I have done translating the poetry of Tahirih, and it's distinctive in many respects. Of course, the heroic life of Tahirih has long been celebrated by playwrights, historians, and Persian social reformers, especially those advocating women's rights in the present-day Iran. Though a 19th century poet of superb eloquence and variety, she is better known by most people as a woman of dauntless faith, courage, and resilience, whether by the Persian community in general, or by the followers of the Baha'i religion in particular, for whom she looms as one of the most remarkable figures of the Baha'i faith in the heroic age, which is from 1844 to 1921. The followers of the Baha'i faith celebrate her as one of the letters of the living, the first 18 followers of the Bab, who was the herald of Baha'u'llah, the founder of the Baha'i faith, and also because of her heroic martyrdom. But what few are understand as well is the remarkable intellect of the woman. She was a follower through the writings of Sheikh Ahmad Akasi and Sayyid Kazim. And she had a dream vision in which she saw the Bab and heard repeated words that she later read in his writings and realized that he was the Qaim, the promised one of Islam. And she became an incredible teacher once Sayyid Kazim passed away, just a few days after she had arrived to meet with him. And she taught fervently throughout Iran. This volume, together with our previous volumes, all of which contain original text by Tahirih's poetry, along with the English translation, is intended to provide both English and Persian readers with access to some of her amazing talents as a poet, but also her depth of knowledge in the teachings of the Bab, teachings that are still being discussed and explained, that she alludes to rather remarkably in her writing. Her poems are hard. They're hard because she uses so much imagery, so much allusion and symbolism. And so we have primarily, I must say, through the incredible scholarship of Amrullah Hemmat, who is a scholar in both Persian and Arabic history and language, been able to provide the reader with all the footnotes, endnotes, and introductory materials to particularly difficult poems, so that the reader begins to understand these allusions and appreciate the poems in full in a way that would not otherwise be possible. Because the poems in this volume are difficult to understand, they will challenge even those who are familiar with the Persian poetic traditions, with the cultural milieu in which she is writing, and with the spiritual, theological, and ontological theories she discusses and explains. For this reason, we have provided a substantial general introduction, introductions to some of the more difficult poems, extensive footnotes, and so on, as well as a glossary at the end that defines particularly important terms that recur. It was took us several years to do this work, and was in some ways harder than in any of the previous volumes, though we learned from the previous volumes much that assisted us in creating this, probably our last volume, because each manuscript in each of the 4 volumes was discovered differently in a different place and so on, very fortuitously. So I hope that you will purchase the book and study it and get to know more about the depth of this individual, how really amazing her knowledge would be compared to even current day scholars in the Baha'i teachings. One of the things that is well worth noting before I finish is simply the not just the selflessness with which she dedicates herself and her foreknowledge that she's going to be martyred, but the fact that she pleads with God to relieve her from the suffering that she's made to endure, both through imprisonment and, of course, ultimately with the cruelty of her execution, where a scarf was stuffed down her throat and she was thrown into a well. Over and over again at the end of the poems, she pleads for relief, much the same way that Baha'u'llah does in some passages. Well, I could say a great deal more, but the poems speak for themselves, and I hope that you will enjoy the book and study the book with others and get to know a little bit more about Tahirih than the history of her life.